Hey there, bread lovers. Let's make some sourdough bread together. I decided to make 2 loaves this time simply because it finishes so fast. We will go through the whole process step by step. We will do an overnight fermentation in the fridge. Let's get started. Since this is a double loaf recipe, I'm going to need 400 grams of active starter. I'm adding in 400 grams of filtered water directly in. This is practically a float test in motion. You can see that when I'm adding the water, the starter is rising on top. It's a clear indication that the starter is healthy and active and we're ready to make some bread with it. You can really see how it floats on top. You don't need to do it, but I'm going to mix this all up. Usually I skip this step, but with the double loaf I decided to do it. This will take you no more than a minute or two. Again, it's fine if you skip it, you can add your flour directly in. I'm going to add 800 grams of strong bread flour. This is a 70% hydration recipe, which is my personal favorite. In come our 2% salt, which is about 20 grams. And that's all the ingredients we need. Next, we need to mix everything really good. Make sure there is no dry areas. Now, I did try this recipe with a 65% hydration, 75 and an 80, and honestly 70 is my personal preference. With 70 the bread comes just right. 65 it's a bit too dry, while 75 and 80 the moisture inside is a bit too much for me. But it's a personal preference, so you can try it out. Just keep in mind it's a bit harder to work with anything beyond the 70% hydration. Once it's mixed, I'm gonna take out my tool and I'm gonna continue combining it with my hand. I'm not gonna knead it, I'm just gonna make sure that there is no flour left on the bottom. This doesn't take more than 3 to 5 minutes. And honestly, I'm not using much force. At a certain point, I'm just picking it up. Even the 70% hydration can be quite difficult, so I'm gonna use a dough scraper to take the excess dough from my hand. I still need to mix the dough some more, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna wet my hand and I'm going to flip it over a few times. By wetting my hand, it's no longer going to stick, and it's actually also going to help me clean my hand a bit more. I'm just making sure everything is combined and there is no flour on the bottom. I'm not really kneading this dough as I don't need to. As a final step, I'm going to do something like a slap and fold but inside my bowl. I just take my dough scraper with some water and I'm going to take everything from the sides and I'm going to check again the bottom. And that's it with the first part. Next we'll be doing some stretch and folds 4 or 5 times, and then we're going to shape it. We need to let this dough rest for about 30 minutes before we do our first stretch and fold. So just cover it and let it rest at room temperature. This is the first stretch and fold. You need to wet your hand. What you need to do is grab the dough from underneath, just pull it up and then flip it over itself. Do this from all four sides while turning the bowl. Since this is the first time I'm doing it, the dough is still pretty stiff, so there is not much bubbles formed yet. This means I don't need to worry too much about picking it up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip it over on itself a few times after I've done the 4 stretch and folds from each side. This really helps gluten development. Once you're done, just cover up and leave it on the counter again at room temperature. In 30 minutes you're ready to go again. You pretty much repeat the same process. If your starter is active enough, you might already see some development of air bubbles inside your dough. If this is so, then you now need to be a bit more careful while you do your stretch and folds, because you really don't want to degas your dough. As you see, even with 70%, it's still quite stretchy. If you're going to flip it over, be a bit more careful this time. However, you can skip this step. Cover and let it rest for 30 minutes. Here you can already see some big bubbles development. The dough should feel a lot lighter. Wet your hand as often as you need to. After all, this dough can be quite sticky. Go again from each side very gently. You can gently tuck it in at the end. Just don't degas it, it's going to be a big mistake. All that air that is already developed you're going to lose and your bread is going to be flat. Final stretch and fold is pretty much the same, so I'm not gonna show you that. Next we'll dust our surface and we're going to shape our bread, as the bulk fermentation is already done. It took about 3.5 hours. This dough has rested for about 40 minutes after the final stretch and fold. As you can see, it's quite well developed. It has a lot of air inside it. What you can do is directly flip this over on your well dusted surface. You just need to wait perhaps 30 seconds to a minute. At the end, gravity will do its thing. See what happens when you haven't dusted enough. It begins to stick. No worries, just flip it over on itself. Be very careful not to degas it. You just need to make it into a bowl and divide it in two. I'm not gonna weigh in the two parts, as I don't need to be that precise. You can if you want to, so use your kitchen scale. Once they're divided, I'm going to do the final shape and I'm going to transfer them to my proofing baskets. I'm not gonna do any fancy final shaping here. I'm gonna keep it simple. I'll dust a bit so it doesn't stick. Flip it over, stretch it a bit. I'm gonna fold the two sides together, turn it around and gently roll it in. This is one of the most simple shapings you can do. Now simply transfer to your proofing basket. And repeat with the second loaf. If you feel it's gonna stick to your hands, add some flour. Again, just flip it together and gently roll it in. You don't need to apply too much force. Make sure it's sealed in from both sides. And transfer to your other proofing basket. What you can do is add some stitches. This helps with the final rise in the oven. However, if you're uncomfortable, this step is not really necessary. It's just something I like to do. In the fridge overnight for 12 hours. Next morning, preheat your oven at 240 degrees Celsius. This is how it should look like when you take it out of the fridge. Have nice gluten development. Flip it over on some baking paper. Take it out of the proofing basket. And you're ready to score it. You need a sharp knife or a razor blade. I'm gonna use a razor blade as it allows me more precision. Make one big score on the side. This is necessary so that the bread doesn't break at any other weak points. Because as it bakes, it will break at the weakest point of the dough. You don't really want to do that. You want to control how your bread rises in the oven. The decoration marks are optional, are completely up to you. Spray some water on top as that will help with the oven rise. That way the crust will not form that fast. In the oven for about 40 minutes or until golden brown. And here is the result. This one came out really nice. It has a real baker's here. And here you can see that I did not cut deep enough from one of the sides. Still, this will not affect the taste in any way. Both loaves will be just delicious. Thank you for watching.